Welcome to the Underground Dhamma Podcast, episode 11. After a long time away, 1 week break, we are back. And my name is Juan, and I am rejoined by the illustrious Joana. Hello, Joana.
Hi, Juan.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I did have a question for you, Joana. It's a Zen Koan question.
Okay.
Why did the bearded barbarian, Bodhidharma, come from the West to China? I'll take that as your answer. That was really good, actually. I was not expecting it. Do you know what the Zen master answered to that question once?
No, what was it?
They asked him, why did the bearded barbarian come from the West? And he said, the Cypress hill outside. And your answer with the silence was pretty good too.
Well, actually, Juan, I was still thinking.
That's funny. We find Zen masters wherever we want.
But you know what's interesting?
What?
I was listening to one of Anton Wilson's talks today, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think it was yesterday. And he was saying that he still hasn't figured out why it is that technology is always developing the fastest in the West.
Yeah. He said that knowledge and like capital are the same thing and that it's always going westward.
Yeah. So when you asked me that question, it was kind of a synchronicity.
Very cool. That is a synchronicity.
Yes. I think you answered Anton Wilson's question.
The Cypress hill outside?
Yes.
So you've been gone for 2 weeks now. We did an episode with my good friend Ivan, and I'm sure we'll have him back again.
And yeah, that was awesome. I really appreciated his willingness to share his story. It was very genuine.
Yes, very genuine. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about him, and I've known him for a long time. So he definitely opened up, and I was happy to have him because he's very, very sharp and always up to talk about reality. So I really enjoyed having that conversation with him. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun when we have him back together and you're on the podcast as well.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
And we took a week off last week. I think a dynamic is better with two people on the podcast. So I wanted to wait for you to come, and it gave me a week off. So I was happy. Now, you were at Empty Cloud Monastery in New Jersey. How was your stay out there?
Yes, I was there for like 10 days. And it was a challenge. It was challenging, but apparently I really liked it because when I left, I started crying.
You were missing it already?
I think that, well, I was a little emotional because I think I was PMSing, so normally I'm not that emotional, but I think that I made like some very strong connections with some people there, and I really appreciated being in an environment where the Dhamma was valued and respected. And I realized that there's something really special in that type of environment. Mm-hmm. And I think I was probably So the thing about me is I noticed that I do, I notice when I develop attachments, and I think part of me developed an attachment. I'm not sure if it was to the whole place or to the monks and to some of the friends I made there, but yeah, I feel like I definitely did appreciate the connections I made there, getting to know the people there, the monks, and Ayasoma, Bhante Suddhaso, Champika, Christy, and everyone, because we kind of like became a family for a little while. And we would wake up early in the morning. We'd wake up at 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'd meet in one of the little chapels to at 5:30 a.m. We'd meet in one of the little chapels to start meditating and chanting. We'd chant for about half an hour, then we'd meditate for about another hour, and then we would have breakfast together, and everything, all the tasks were shared. We kind of like worked together as like a little family, and we did everything together. And, that was like harmonious in a sense, and it was very beautiful. I'm not going to say it was all, uh, you know,
Rainbows.
perfect all the time. There were moments where, you had to develop tolerance for different people's perspectives and opinions and behaviors.
Or
And
as Bhante Siriniwasa, we learn likes to say, idiosyncrasies.
yeah. So, yeah, in that sense, it was challenging, but I feel that it was definitely a great learning experience. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to go there and learn from the monastics at Empty Cloud. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had to be there and learn from them.
Hmm. Sadhu, that sounds really nice, actually. And I was gonna say that when you were trying to think of what you may have gotten attached to, I was gonna say that maybe you got attached to the lifestyle.
Yeah, I think I did. Definitely the lifestyle and the feeling that you get when you live with people who respect and value the Dhamma, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, that probably you really lived that. The first blessing that the Buddha gave, there's a story called the Maha Mangala Sutta, and
Mhm.
it's where a deva who's we can call it an alien or a celestial being, inhabitant of heaven, came down and started talking to the Buddha and came and asked him that there are many blessings, but which are the biggest blessings? And the Buddha, the first one he says is to not to associate with fools and to associate with the wise. That's the biggest blessing, at least the first one. And so it sounds like you were living that, you were experiencing the blessing of that.
Yeah, probably.
Um, what did you take away from your retreat?
I I feel like I learned to develop my discipline further when it comes to like waking up early and developing a daily routine and daily commitment to practicing meditation, not just in like literally sitting down and meditating, but in everything that you do, like being aware, maintaining an awareness of everything, your thoughts, your actions, your words, and also remembering that when I come across difficult people or people who, usually people who are difficult are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
That's what one thing, I mean, I think I knew this before, but I never really like stopped to think about to like vocalize that thought and just say it out loud or discuss it. But Yeah, sometimes when people are difficult, it's because they're struggling. They have struggles. I have struggles. There's moments where I'm difficult. There may be times where, depending on which viewpoint or what person is around me, I'm sure they may have found me difficult at certain moments. Um, but maintaining an awareness constantly throughout your interactions with others and remembering not to take things personal, and that, that one day we're all going to die. That really helped me to prioritize that that thought. That thought helped me to prioritize what it is, what kind of words I want to use around people. Like, I'm sure there were moments where it wasn't easy, to tolerate uh certain comments, but just depending on how you interpret things, it's not it's possible to just like to be okay and to
Mm-hmm.
not take it personal. And just remembering that we all have struggles. You don't know what people are going through, and don't take things personal. Um, yeah.
That seems to have had the most impact on you, to have that practice.
The part about tolerance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Hmm. That's good. The Buddha always said that the tolerance or patience is the greatest austerity or the greatest ascetic practice.
Yeah, and then also one of the bhikkhunis that founded one of the co-founders of Empty Cloud Monastery in Newark, New Jersey, is a woman, and her name is Bhikkhuni Ayasoma.
Yes.
And she actually spent some time. She shared a little bit about her experience as a bhikkhuni in Thailand, and how bhikkhunis are treated in Thailand, how they're treated, they're not treated very well. But I remember her saying that in itself, that type of atmosphere for bhikkhunis in Thailand helps them, although it is not pleasant, it certainly does challenge them and give them more opportunities for growth. And when she said that, I was like, wow, that's true. So, and she said that in a way, bhikkhus are kind of missing out because things are really easy for them there when it comes to social politics in Thailand. Apparently, politics have a very strong influence on monastic life and monastic culture in Thailand. So for women, it's just very different.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a visiting bhikkhuni. Her name was Bhikkhuni Ayasudina. And I had the opportunity to go on a walk with her, with Diana and Justin, two of our friends from the temple who also came with me, and Bhante Sanata. We all went together. Bhante Sanata invited us. And I asked Ayasudina, I said, I've heard a lot of stories about how women are treated, bhikkhunis are treated, especially in Thailand, that they're not treated very well. And then I said, after I said that, she turned and she looked at me and she said, you have to learn to accept things as they are. And then she like slowly turned away and kept walking.
And then levitated into the air and yeah, that's a very deep thing to say in the way you describe. She turned around very like attentively and calm, and she dropped this like jewel of knowledge and then just turned around.
Yeah, it was like a gentle slap in the face.
Yeah, very zen. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think if we all practice that, to just accept things as they are, That's honestly how you start to dissipate the emotions. I remember at work one time, a customer was so angry, so upset about an order that had experienced some issues. And he was so upset and so mad that he started getting angry at me for me not being upset and mad. And he kept egging me on, like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you mad? And I would say, like, uh, I don't want to get upset. I don't like being mad. I try to accept things as they are. And he started, that made him even more angry. He started lecturing me.
Whoa.
And yeah, he started saying how, and then the more and more angry he got, I still didn't react to him. And then he started insulting me at that point, and like calling me names and making remarks about how I'll never accomplish anything. And I was just like, oh, okay. In my head, I'm like, okay, you can do whatever you like. I'm just gonna accept the situation. It's okay. And
Wait, you
finally,
said that or you were thinking that?
I was thinking that at that
Oh,
point,
okay.
I didn't want to even waste any energy on him. And but yeah, so it's funny how, some people, especially in the West, they'll think that accepting things as they are, it's like something bad. But it's actually, it's a key. It's a key to waking up, honestly.
To
Because
finding peace, huh?
to finding peace, yeah. Because Alan Watts used to say that you can't still or steady water with an iron. You can't. The more and more you try to iron the water, the more and more disturbed it gets. The only way is to let it go. I mean, to let it sit still, let it be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Aya Sudina was that the bhikkhuni's name?
Yes.
I think she's very wise for pointing that out, and especially about something that can, a concept, especially for women. I would imagine, for a woman who hears about these stories about how they are mistreated and treated basically like slaves sometimes by the lay people
Yeah,
and the
that's yeah.
male monks. And that would normally trigger an emotional reaction, an emotional disturbance. But she was very calm, it seemed, and she gave you really deep dhamma.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you What did you think of the abbot, Bhante Suddhaso?
He was very nice, and like when I would look into his eye, well, when I communicate with people, I normally like to look them in the eye, and
Yeah, you like to look the ugly truth in the eye. I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
and I've noticed that like ever since I started meditating, I do this like I'm much more aware of when I do. Well, I feel like I'm much more aware of a lot of things that I do, but especially when it comes to communicating with people,
Mm-hmm.
I notice that I really I try to maintain awareness when I'm talking to people, and I look them in the eye, and I notice that there's people who like their attention. I try to feel them out. Like I'm not just looking them in the eye. I'm kind of like feeling them out, not just their energy, but like their attention, like their expressions. Although it looks like I'm just looking at them in the eye, I'm actually like paying attention to everything. But I noticed that there's some people whose like attention wavers because they're
Yes.
distracted. And I noticed that there's some people whose attention does not waver. And they're able to maintain that focus. And he's one of those people.
Mm. Very powerful, it seems.
Yeah, like it's not common to meet people like that, but I feel like amongst uh, the monastics, it is. I
Yeah.
mean, it's much more common than it is amongst uh, lay people.
Yeah, that I would agree with that.
Yeah, and then aside from that, he was very knowledgeable about the teachings, the Dhamma, suttas, and like the history behind Buddhism. And yeah, he seemed to know a lot about devas and, like history, like, the very, to me, I find those things interesting, those topics interesting about when it comes to devas, nagas, dreams, those mystical topics. They seem mystical, at least.
Yeah, just because they're not so common or they're not so known. That's what mystical means. It's like covered by a mist.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly normal. It's just not in our ordinary consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bhante Suddhaso was telling us how when he was practicing under, do you remember the name of his teacher?
Ajahn Pasano, maybe?
Yes. So apparently Ajahn Pasano was one of his teachers. And the teacher of Ajahn Pasano was Ajahn Mun. And the teacher of Ajahn Mun was Ajahn
Cha?
Cha. Yes. So I've heard of Ajahn Cha, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize how well known he was until, I went to visit the monastery and I spoke to other people. And when I saw their reactions when they spoke about him, I was like, wow, this guy sounds like he was a big deal, like he was very important and he has his reputation, he's very respected.
Yeah, he's like a Bodhidharma of sorts.
Yeah. So Bhante Suddhaso was saying that when he was practicing under the instruction of Ajahn Pasano,
Mm-hmm.
he would instruct them to do 4-hour meditation sessions. And when he said that, I was like, whoa.
Were you worried you're going to do 4-hour meditations at this retreat?
No, I just thought that was amazing that, he could do that like on a daily basis. I thought that was I thought that was awesome. I was like, whoa, I wonder if I could do that.
What do you think?
Well, I won't know until I try.
Well, I hope you let us know your experience.
Yeah, but then I asked Bhante Sanata about his experience. I mean, about his, what he used to do before he became a monastic. And Bhante said that he spent some time at some meditation retreats here in California, in Northern California. Do you remember the names of the temples?
It was a mountain Zen meditation center called Yokoji.
That's one of the centers Bhante Sanata trained at, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one that I know he trained at, and he meditated for like 4 days for many, many hours a day. And he experienced a lot of pain. And and then after like the 4th day, he had like a breakthrough. But yeah.
What was the name of the other temple?
Well, the other temple that I know for sure he trained at a little or practiced meditation and retreats was Beginner's Mind in Northridge in the San Fernando Valley.
That Bhante Sanata trained at?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Bhante Sanata mentioned that Bhante Suddhaso had spent time at not only at the how do you pronounce it? Yokoji temple, but at another temple close by. What was the name of that one?
I think he mentioned Tassajara, which is in Northern California, and it's like a very famous temple. A lot of famous Western teachers came out of there.
Wow. So yeah, I thought that was interesting that he spent time there. And
they practice the Zen tradition there. So he must have been practicing the Zen tradition.
Oh.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So another thing I learned, Juan, while I was there is that apparently a lot of the biggest meditation centers are here in California.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch in Northern California. There's some, and I think in San Diego, in the San Diego area, and I'm definitely a lot around here in Los Angeles. So yeah, we're very lucky. I'm just
Yeah.
happy to have found our Sarathchandra Buddhist Meditation Center here in North Hollywood, and to have found such amazing monks that live and practice the Dhamma and teach the real Dhamma.
Yes, definitely. I don't know what I did right, Juan. I must have done something right to find the temple.
I always think about it. My dad passed away. He came over from Mexico illegally, and had to cross a few times illegally, to either bring back my mom, or to do many things. And we grew up poor, um, very modest. We always had food, we had shelter, but we definitely didn't have a lot of luxuries. And every time I think about my dad now, from everything I know now, I'm so grateful. I'm so filled up with gratitude, and just the fortune, the fortune that he didn't have a lot of money, but he got his family here, settled here in the San Fernando Valley. He lived in Los Angeles for a while, but then in the San Fernando Valley, and he brought me so close to this incredible jewel of a temple where they have the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha in its purest form. And I look back and I feel so grateful. What a beautiful blessing. What a beautiful road. It makes everything worth it to have come across such a incredible. I always called it an oasis in samsara.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel very happy to have found this temple. So yeah, I think there is a lot of places to practice here in California.
Yeah, and so now I know that there's a lot of exploring I need to do here in California. And remember how I told you I was going crazy at my job?
Yes.
Well, after this break, I feel a little bit better. And I don't think I told you, but miraculously, Juan, while I was on the retreat, I got an email from work. And the email said that my transfer request has been approved. So I'm going to be starting work at a new office next week.
Mm, wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, I believe you may have mentioned that, and I was very happy, relieved for you.
Yes,
Relieved.
I do feel a little relieved, but you know what? I'm actually starting to open now that I've experienced this retreat at Buddhist Insights in Newark, New Jersey. I feel like I'm now open to the possibility of exploring other meditation centers here in California.
Hmm, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I think I'm either going to go to Yokoti or to Sahara next.
Mm. I know. I think they do like 3-day meditations and also 1 week meditations at Yokoji. So they spent a long time trying to fix their center because it got messed up by the weather. But I think they're up and running now, and it's pretty interesting, Joanna. I'll send you some of the videos from that center because they have videos on YouTube about how to practice because it's a Zen tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Zen tradition, they're very disciplined about the forms, about how you walk into the room, about how you,
Whoa.
yeah, you have to step in with a certain foot first. You have to bow at the Buddha. You have to walk in a certain way with your palms in a certain way towards your meditation cushion. You have to bow to your cushion. You have to clean it, by wiping, swiping away anything on it, and then turn around and bow to the teacher, and then sit and turn around, face the wall. Although there they face the center of the room, and you meditate, and then you'll do some walking meditation, and you'll get up in a certain way, and everything's like very attentive. And it's like, to someone who maybe is not familiar with that, it might sound like too much, but that all those forms that they have you practice is what keeps you sane. It's what keeps you from going crazy, because you're doing deep practice there. Imagine like the deepest therapy sessions, and making sure to be attentive to the forms is actually cultivating your attention. So you're engaging your attention, and I think that's something very powerful can happen in that type of meditation.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it sounds, Juan, like they are making, well, they encourage you to maintain awareness, like literally second to second.
Oh yeah, 24/7. Even when it's time to eat, you have to unroll the utensils in a certain way. You have to you have to eat in a certain way. You have to put away and clean your bowl and your utensils in a certain way. It's all very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I'll send you the videos after the podcast. I'm interested to see what you think about it. Uh,
Okay, thank you.
I've always appreciated our temple because it's a little more lax as far as they've never told me to sit a certain way. They've never told me not to move. They never tell me not to sneeze, not to cough, not to. There's no rules of what not to do, and I like that. I like that's just my style. Even though I like Zen, uh, I'm not the, I guess, the Japanese Zen type, because the sitting meditation and the forms is really something that happened in Japanese Zen. And it's happened because, Zen became a place where people sent their kids to go practice. And because they were now teaching people who were not there out of their own accord because of a life or death problem in their spiritual spiritual experience, they were sent there by their parents. Then they had to create all these forms to help. But that's just like a practical look at why these forms happen. But there's also the spiritual aspect of helping you maintain attention at all times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very interesting. They used to criticize Alan Watts for not sitting, not make. Alan Watts used to call it that they fetishize sitting, and they used to criticize Alan Watts. And Alan Watts, I believe, one time said that he's like a cat. A cat will sit, and then when he wants, he'll just get up and walk away. And he doesn't sit as a fetish. But there is a lot of benefits to that type of practice. As you mentioned Bhante Suddhaso learning from his teacher for sitting for 4 hours at a time. That's extremely hard, but I'm sure there's some benefit to it.
Yeah, I can see how he developed his attention. Like his attention does not waver. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to talk to him about Zen practice. Hopefully we can interview him one day.
Yeah, that would be nice.
We were talking before the podcast, and you said you were listening to the Ivan podcast, and then you said that you would something about checking the podcast or the channel.
Yeah, so since I was over there, like every now and then I would check on it, and I'd be like, I'm the type of person who likes to see things. I like to watch things grow like plants. And ever since we started this podcast, I've been watching it grow. And I think it's very, since I couldn't do a podcast with you because I was out there, I just would like look at the channel and just watch it grow. And it made me happy to see how you and Ivan's episode, people were interested in listening to it. And yeah, it was just something I did for fun.
Mm. You said you mentioned it to some of the retreat.
Oh yeah, so after a few days, I started talking to some of the some of the meditators that came to stay there as well. And eventually I told him I had a podcast. And I remember one of our friends, Christy, she was like, "You have a podcast and you didn't tell me?"
This was after a few days there or something?
Yeah, it was after a few days. And then I started laughing, and then I told her the name of it, and then she found it.
Oh.
And then she told me about her YouTube channel. And
She has one too?
yeah, she has a YouTube channel, and she has a very creative mind, and she's kind of like a Wikipedia. She has like a Wikipedia brain, and she can tell you the most interesting random topics depending on the conversation. Like she likes to share information, and she's very, very creative, and she likes to make films. So she has her own YouTube channel where she literally made a joke, and it took her 3 days to make this film just for a joke.
Wow.
And I was like, she showed Diana and me the video, and we watched it. It was about a spoon, how her friend lent her a spoon so she could eat her ice cream, and then how she developed an attachment to the spoon and a relationship with the spoon. And then eventually the spoon, she had to return the spoon, and the spoon left her. So then she was like crying, and it was really cute. But but after we watched it, I looked at her and I said, "You spent 3 days on a joke?" And then her and Diana were just laughing at me. But yeah, she was very special. And yeah, it was really nice getting to know some of the people there. Like this other lady, Champika, she's a teacher, and she was so kind and patient. And I remember when Chris is, he's one of our friends from our Zoom group with Bhante Sanata.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his wife Amanda came to stay at the temple as well for one night.
Mm-hmm.
And like literally within an hour of him showing up with Amanda, he went up to Champika and he told her that he wanted to learn from her.
What?
Yes. So Champika is a special lady too. Mm-hmm. Like you could feel how peaceful she is and how kind she is. And when Chris went up to her and like told her he wanted to learn from her, I was like, wow, he felt it too. And Champika said, I was kind of like standing there, we were in the kitchen, and I was just listening. And then she said, whatever you give to others, they will give back to you. She said, if you give respect to others, they will give you respect back.
Sounds like she has a lot of experience.
Yes. And I asked her, no, she was telling me, well, we were like sharing stories with each other. And at a certain point, she was telling me that, when she would take the metro for transportation, and that sometimes there would be like mean people, like emotional people on the metro, and it would be a little scary sometimes. And I asked her, what do you do? And she said, I just do metta. I send them metta. And then I realized she does metta all the time. And I feel like that's probably why she's so peaceful. And she would tell me, she told me, people always come to me. I don't know why. They always come to me. And then I smiled and I told her, Champika, I know why. And she said, why? And I said, it's because you're peaceful and people feel safe with you. And then I said, well, at least that's what I feel, because I can feel that you are peaceful and I feel safe with you. And then she smiled and she says, oh.
That's funny. I think you're probably right, and especially about her feeling peaceful. I mean, if we think about dukkha, it's normally translated as suffering or stress. But one way that our teacher, Bhante Punaji, talked about it, he talked about it as insecurity. And, what is metta? Metta, universal benevolence, or the you wanting all beings to be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. That is a form of security. The Buddha said that if you practice metta when you're with others, that you're protecting yourself. And some people will think of it as like from a materialistic ways, like you're literally protecting yourself, but it's also just protecting your mind. And so if you're always protecting your mind, you're going to feel secure. And that if you feel secure, then you're free from insecurity. And when you're free from insecurity, you're not emotional, you're peaceful. So I think you're right. I think that's probably why they go to her, because she's always feeling secure and peaceful because of her metta practice.
Yes, definitely. And it was funny because we also went on a trip. Chris wanted to go see the Statue of Liberty. So we took a trip together, a little road trip to go see the statue. And we also met a friend. His name is Daryl. And Daryl took me, Diana, and Christy in his car. And then Bhante Sanata went with Chris, Amanda, and Champika.
Mm-hmm.
And we made it during our stop by the Statue of Liberty, Daryl asked Diana what she was reading, and then she started telling him about the books she was reading. And then eventually they started talking about this book. It's about a yogi.
Do you remember the name or the yogi's name?
The Life of a Yogi, I think.
Yeah.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah, it might be the story of Yogananda, but I'm not sure.
I actually have it right here. It's called Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yeah,
I knew you would know, Juan.
He's very famous, and he has a great movie on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but you should watch it. It's pretty nice.
Really? Well, it was interesting because Diana and Daryl started talking about this book, and then Daryl was saying that when Steve Jobs died, he had directed his company to hand out a copy of this book to all his employees.
Wow, that's pretty badass.
Yeah, and that it is said that on his Kindle, he only had one book, and this was the book. Either he only had one book, or he was reading a book at the time when he passed, and this was the book that he was reading. So Diana and Daryl started discussing the book, and then I told them, you know what, guys, I've actually heard about this book for a while, and I've been wanting to read it. And you know what's funny? I went to visit my mom, and we went to the garage, and I was looking at the bookshelf, and there's the book. So the book found me.
You know what's funny about that, Joanna, is that in the Hindu tradition, in Buddhism, miracles are no big deal, and we don't focus on miracles. They're like, whatever, we got bigger fish to fry, I guess. We're trying to attain a full awakening and liberation. But in Hinduism, and a lot of the practice of these yogis and these masters, these gurus, they use a lot of miracles. And miracles, they're not something magical. Just because we don't see a physical correlation, a physical connection, we think that it's just a coincidence. And so we call miracles because we don't see a physical connection or physical correlation. We call it a miracle, something that can't be explained.
Yeah, because we cannot find a reasonable, logical explanation behind the event.
Yes, and like if people listen to our podcast episode with Ivan last week, he mentioned how it's funny that in the quantum mechanics, logic breaks down. Logic doesn't work. And so that shows that in reality, it's not completely logical. And so in Hinduism, there's a lot of miracles. I'll talk about one after this, Joanna. But
Oh,
I think that is a very, we can call it, instead of a miracle, a synchronicity, and that's a pretty badass synchronicity.
yeah. And then, yes. So then Diana and Daryl were talking and they were saying that I was like, guys, what is it? What is it in this book? Diana said that this book changed her life. So I asked her, Diana, what is it about the book that really that you found really moving or interesting? And she said that there's a part in the book where she realized that your thoughts create an energy, and that energy can be felt by everyone around you. So she was saying that people can feel whatever you think about yourself or others. And I thought about it, and I know for a fact it's true, because in Buddhism, from what I've learned within my last 2.5 years of exposure to listening to Dhamma talks, suttas, reading about Ramdas, listening to Robert Anton Wilson, Alan Watts, listening to you, Bhante, all the Bhantes, and like we, that saying that we are all one, like for a long time I didn't understand it, but I realized that like what that means is that we all affect each other. Some of us are aware of it and some of us are not. And the deeper I go into Buddhism, I realize that we affect each other so much that like it's pretty fascinating.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. We affect each other so much that the Buddha had to lay down a lifestyle that is harmonious with everything in the universe, because he saw the how connected everything is. And instead of calling it all one, I like to say there's no separation, but it's the same thing. And so are you going to start reading this book?
Yes, I haven't started it yet, but I'm definitely going to read it next. And when I heard Diana say that, she was saying that like if you have if you not just her, but I've heard other people say that whatever you think about yourself, people can feel that. So and Bhante Suddhaso has said it as well, like if you have like if you want to develop confidence, look at yourself in the mirror, say positive things to yourself, like have positive thoughts about yourself, and people will actually react to those thoughts. So it's like your vibration, your vibes are changing and people can feel that. So I just thought that was really interesting.
So me, Joanna. I look everything from a experiential and scientific perspective.
Yes.
So people have brought up energy. They bring up energy all the time, especially at the temple. I've heard them ask the Bhantes about it, and I remember I brought it up one time that this energy that we speak of, you know, it's really the affect. I know we
Oh,
discussed.
yes, you were talking about this. And I was telling you, oh my God, Juan, I've heard, okay, when I was at the Buddhist Insights Monastery, I heard Bhante Sanata use that word. I heard Bhante Suddhaso use that word. I heard Ayasoma use that word. And I didn't understand I don't understand what it was. And you explained it to me. But when the moment you were explaining it to me after I got back from my trip, I was so tired and exhausted and jet lagged. And I knew you wanted to hear everything. And I knew that if I started telling you everything, God knows how many hours I would be spending telling you the story. And that's exactly what happened. Even though I was like so sleep deprived and exhausted, I started telling you I was like, okay, I'll tell you one little bit. Next thing you know, 3.5 hours later, okay,
3 in the
there's
morning.
I was finally finished telling you my story about my experience at the temple. But then I remember you were trying to help me understand the concept of affect, There's you kind of split. Can you give a quick rundown of what it was you were trying to explain to me, please?
Yes. So,
And this time I have my notebook.
All right. So, there's the organism. There's the organism, has many systems. And, when we talk about a certain system, is the nervous system, we talk about something called the mind. And, people use that word all the time, the mind. And it becomes like an entity at that point. But this mind that we discuss is actually an activity. And this activity, we can split into two aspects. There is the cognitive activity and the affect activity, or we can say the affective activity. And we can even include a third activity, which is the perceptual activity. So this experience happens in 3 phases. This experience we call reality happens in 3 phases. First there's the sense experience, which is the perceptual activity. There's a stimulation of the sense organs. That stimulation gets translated into sensory information. It sends a signal up to the brain, and the brain starts constructing and processing that sensory information. And then there's a perception of what was constructed. At that point, it's just experience. But then it goes to the second phase, which is the cognitive experience. We start because of the perception, we start to name an image. And we use the 6 senses to construct an object. And that object comes when we have a cognitive interpretation. So that's the cognitive process. And this cognitive process is using sensation. It's using different sensations, this cognitive process. And that we can call it simply thinking. Thinking uses sensations. Now, then there's the third phase, which is the affective phase. And the affect phase is really based on feelings and emotions. Although, depending on the affect is actually it's not always emotional. It could be tranquil. So based on what your cognitive process, based on how that activity is, that's what's going to lead the affect activity. So the affective activity is feelings and emotions, because based on the feeling, there is an emotional reaction. And so in simple terms, we can call this phase the mood. We can call the first phase perception, the second phase thinking, and the third phase the mood. We only call it the emotional phase because normally the ordinary person is extremely emotional all the time and led by their emotions. And that's usually because their thinking is unconscious. Everyone is thinking automatically and unconsciously. That's why when we go to see the cognitive psychologist and we do cognitive psychotherapy, they start to make us question our automatic thinking. They start to make us reframe it, change it, substitute it for more skillful thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the perception, which is pure experience. Then we have the thinking phase, the thinking process, and that is really what constructs what we call the object. Then we have the affect phase. The affect is based on feeling and mood, which can either be emotional or tranquil, but usually emotional. And so this feeling and emotion is the subject. So the thinking creates the object, the affect, the mood creates the subject. And so you mentioned how your thinking, your thoughts is what creates this energy that people can feel. So I think this energy is really the affect. You can feel when someone's angry. You can feel when someone's calm. You can feel when someone's confident. You can feel when someone's anxious. You can feel, I think you mentioned a lot, feeling people's anxiety and anger.
Oh yeah. So I was telling Bhante Suddhaso that Diana and I had an opportunity to have tea with him, and I was telling him that I'm usually the only main time that I interact with people is when I'm at work. Other than that, I'm usually home by myself, and I'm usually always alone. So I was telling him that because I was struggling in the beginning. I was a little stressed out because I'm not used to being around so many people, like literally on a 24/7 basis, And I was telling him that I could feel people's stuff and I could feel it all the time. And he said that practicing awareness and really going inside will help you develop your awareness, a stronger awareness, so that you can differentiate. He said that being around people, spending more time with people versus spending more time alone, will help you develop a resilience and to develop your awareness to the extent to where you will be able to differentiate your stuff from other people's stuff, like your affect from other people's affect. Is that how you would say it, Juan?
Yeah, that sounds very nice. I like it.
Yeah, so I was like, oh. So yeah. And then Diana also, have we officially introduced Diana to our listeners?
No, tell us about Diana.
Okay, so Diana is one of our Kalyāṇa-mittas. She also started practicing meditation and coming to the temple around the same time I did, which was around 2018, or did she come sooner?
That's when I returned to the temple, and that's when I started seeing her. So I would agree.
Oh, okay. So yeah, she's one of our friends, and she joined us on the meditation retreat that I went to with Bhante Siriniwasa and Justin. Justin is also another of the practicing lay people, one of our friends, Kalyāṇa-mittas. We practice meditation at the Sarathchandra temple, and throughout the pandemic lockdown, we've also continued to attend Bhante Sanata's Zoom meditations since we could not attend physically at the temple due to the lockdown. We would attend his Zoom meditations and we would practice and learn more about Buddhism. And we finally had the opportunity, Bhante Sanata invited us to go to the Buddhist Insights Meditation Retreat Center in Newark, New Jersey. And me, Diana, Justin, and I were three of the students who went, as well as Chris, who's also another student. He hasn't had the opportunity to come to Sarathchandra Temple yet due to the lockdown, but he is also another Kalyāṇa-mitta, and Kalyāṇa-mitta is pretty much a friend in the Dharma, right, Bhante? Right, Juan?
Yeah, it's a spiritual friend or a Dharma friend, we can say. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah. So yeah, I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with Diana and learn about her. And yeah, you were right, Juan. She is very wise.
Oh yeah. I've only, I haven't gotten the chance to hang out too much with her, but I would see her at the temple. We would talk a bit. I sometimes would give her a ride home. We would talk a bit. Sometimes we might send each other some memes and joke and laugh like at these like Dharma memes. And yeah, even from our little interaction, I could see she's very wise. And obviously she's had a spiritual journey that may have not been strictly Dharma, but she anyone, Dharma just means experience. Buddha Dharma means awakened experience. And so, but anyone has the ability to see the Dharma because we're all swimming in experience.
Yeah.
So she has become wise even before she found the Dharma, through her own path. I think she followed a lot of indigenous people's spiritual practices and spiritual ideas, a lot of shamanic as well, I think. And now she's found the Dhamma, and I think she's like soaked it up so good, and she's really wise and smart. So I think that's what you have been. Maybe you got to notice now that you spent some time with her.
Yeah. So I realized that she kind of like she has developed her awareness very well, and she can feel people's stuff too. So I guess I was able to relate to her, and I just thought it was interesting because there were moments where I could feel her stuff. She could feel my stuff like instantly, and I could feel her stuff. But sometimes like I couldn't tell if it was mine or hers. So yeah, that was definitely challenging, but it was very insightful as well.
Very interesting. I once brought up the idea to Bhante because Bhante Kalita, who's the abbot of Sarathchandra Buddhist Center, he's a Mahatera Nayaka. He has all these, a royal pandit, which is like pandita is like a wise person. And he has so many titles. So, if he stayed in Sri Lanka, he would be extremely high ranking, even though he's not looking for any fame or anything like that. But he's just an incredible Dharma career and incredible Dharma wisdom. He was once asked about energy, and I think he allowed me to talk, and I talked about how, energy, all it really is the neurochemicals and the hormones and the peptides that we experience. That's the real energy, because that's what moves the organism.
Yes, that's what actually creates the emotions, isn't
That's
it?
right. That's the energy. And Joanna, if we have to talk about the affect, if you want in simple terms to describe the affect, there's the word chitta. Chitta is the affect. And the thinking process is the mano. And the perceptual process is the vijnana. And in the suttas, all the psychic powers, they come from the chitta. And you just said right now that these neurotransmitters, these hormones and these peptides, these are all what is creating the emotional reaction. So this energy can either be squandered by getting fed to the emotions and having our energy be expelled and squandered and expressed outward, or it can be, or we can have a calm chitta, calm affect, a tranquil affect, and then this energy stays inside. And I think this is why that the Buddha talked about psychic powers for people who meditate and get into the deep meditations, because they're no longer squandering this energy. They're no longer expelling and losing this energy. And I call the emotional reactions as black holes. They suck up all the energy and they lose it. And if you're not experiencing emotional reactions all the time because you've corrected your thinking, because it's the thinking that produces these neurotransmitters that signal glands to secrete hormones, and then peptides can work in the brain, in the nervous system as neurotransmitters, and in the bloodstream as hormones. These things can do both.
Mm-hmm.
It's your thinking that's creating the emotional reaction. So for a person who has corrected their thinking and no longer sending these neurotransmitters to trigger signals that to send out hormones to trigger emotions, that means there's no emotions. That means you're not losing this energy. This energy is staying inside and you have control of this. And this is how you get into the deeper meditations, by being free of emotions. And this is how it is possible to gain these psychic powers, because now you have this abundance of energy.
Isn't it? I think it's funny how these abilities are called psychic powers.
Yes.
Because even when I was like a kid, I could feel these things, like I was aware of them. But as I got older, like I kind of I steered away from, I kind of lost awareness of it. And then through meditation, I came back to it.
That reminds me of Jesus when he said, lest you become like a child, you shall not enter the kingdom of God. So it's interesting. And the Buddha, when he awakened on the night of his awakening, he thought back to a practice he did as a child.
Wow. Yes.
That's what.
Oh my God.
Very deep, huh?
Yes. Like I remember when I was a kid, I was so sensitive to everything. Like I could feel things, and like I knew things. Like, how they say children are very sensitive to people's energies.
Mm-hmm.
And like they can tell when someone has good intentions and when someone has bad intentions. Also, like animals are very sensitive to people's energies. Like,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I remember as a child, I was just really sensitive. But it's funny though, because a lot of times when I try to relate with other people and their childhood experiences, I notice a lot of people don't remember.
Yeah.
Like their early childhood. So I just thought that was interesting how some people remember their early childhood and some people don't.
I think that's I think this is just theorizing, but I think that has to do with your level of attention. And I don't mean only your level of attention during that past experience. I mean the level of attention right here, right now. One of the psychic powers, the Buddha, there's a sutra called the Tevijja Sutta. Te meaning three, Vijja meaning super knowledge, Sutta. And the three super knowledges that the Buddha experienced was being able to see your past lives, seeing how beings are going from one plane to another based on their karma, their actions, their activity, and then seeing how the emotional influences, how they are produced and how they are eradicated. And So it's interesting. How do you get to this Tevijja, this triple knowledge, this triple super knowledge? You get to it by cultivating extreme, unremittent, constant attention. So, it's hard for people to remember their childhood. Well, if you cultivate your attention to this high degree, purify this attention to this high degree, you can not only remember your childhood, you can remember past lives. Because past lives is not something mystical, it's just a memory. Just how you can remember what happened to you yesterday. You can, if your attention is cultivated to this high, pure degree, you can remember what happened last life, the life before that, what your name was, who your family was, what your job was, how you died, everything, what you ate.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah. So I think, I think that's why, I always say to people who have wept while meditating and, cried, and I always bring up the Zen saying that you haven't really meditated unless you've cried or wept. And, every time I say this, they always ask me, but why? And, I think it's because when you meditate, it's like you're stilling the mind. And when the mind becomes still, a lot of the dirt that is in the water, we can use this metaphor of the water of the mind, it starts to, you starts to still the mind, it starts to rise up to the top.
Oh my God.
And so all these emotional experiences start rising to the top. But that's how you deal with them, by experiencing them and letting them go. Not getting caught up in the reaction, but seeing and experience it. Sometimes that stress comes up of the past experience. And what is one way that the body gets rid of this stress hormone? It's through tears.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I explain why this happens in meditation.
I actually have cried multiple times while I meditated.
Yeah. I think any Zen master will tell you that you've been meditating properly.
There was one time, Juan, when I was home alone and I was meditating, and I didn't know why I was crying. I was just crying and crying, and I just felt like so sad, and I didn't understand why. But I just it came and then it went, and then I kept meditating.
Yeah, that I think when you sit and you no longer distract yourself, things can come up into the light of your consciousness. And here we're not saying consciousness is anything mystical. It's literally just your conscious attention. And usually we're unconscious of all, Freud talked about repression. A lot of these things are repressed and we're unconsciously repressing it. And so, but when you're cultivating attention, things come up. And, I'm sure the Buddha saw all his repressed memories of his past lives.
Mm-hmm.
But, luckily at that point, he had been practicing the paramitas, the perfections, for hundreds of eons. So I'm sure he saw a lot of good, but, I'm sure he also saw a lot of the unpleasant experiences that the human being experiences.
Yes. And what's interesting, I was talking, so within this last week, I've been spending a little time with a friend of mine who just recently lost her daughter.
Yes.
And today I was talking to her, and she was saying that if it wasn't for the Buddhist practice of meditation and the Dhamma, she said that she doesn't think that she would have survived this experience, this loss, and this pain that she's experiencing right now with the loss of her daughter. And she said that typically people like become very emotional, and there's people, when they lose a child, they will like literally like stop functioning.
Yeah, like the Sutra of Kisagotami.
Yes. And like they literally go mad. And sometimes they get so bad that they literally have to go see a psychotherapist or a doctor, who then prescribes them like painkillers, or something to help them like relax.
Yeah, that numbs them.
Yes. And or some people turn to alcohol to numb the pain.
Hmm.
But in the end, when it comes to people who choose those paths, who choose that path of escaping the pain, that experience, of losing someone, when they choose to drink or take drugs to escape those emotions, once they're done, once the effects wear off, that pain is still there, and they're just like running from it. And she says that she understands that facing it and feeling it is the only way out. And I just thought that was very brave and wise of her. And uh, I thought that was very,
It's
very,
extremely wise, and
yes, very wise.
especially in the midst of it. It's easy to be wise once, you have some distance from this unpleasant experience, but to be wise in the midst of it is incredible. It's
Yes, it
extraordinary.
is incredible, definitely. Like I'm just in awe, like, you know?
Yeah. My thoughts and well wishes go out to our friend. I
Thank
know
you.
I know it's not easy to lose someone that you love so deeply. And I don't think there is a deeper love than that of a mother to her child. So, I hope that you, I hope she keeps on practicing what she has confidence and conviction in, and knows that, it sounds like she knows what the Bhikkhuni Sudina told you. What was that again when she turned around and told you?
She said you have to learn to accept things as they are.
Yeah, it goes back to that. And that's excruciatingly hard when you lose something you love so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Well, I am also blessed, and I feel fortunate to have the Dhamma. I've had some hardships in my life, and yeah, I don't think I would have survived without the Dhamma. Um, so a lot of people who experience these hardships, and they might even kill themselves. But we're lucky for people who have found the Dhamma, that they have this base, this foundation to rely on.
Yes, definitely. And uh again, these emotions are hormones.
Yeah, and it's the neurotransmitters that signal the glands to secrete the hormones. And although the neuroscientists, the neurobiologists will not take this last step, they will not say that it's the thoughts that trigger the neurotransmitters. But that's what I think. If I had to take that leap, I'll take it. I think it's the thoughts that trigger the neurotransmitters, which signal the glands to secrete whatever hormones there are. And that's why I think the Buddha said that mano pupangama dhamma, thinking precedes experience. Experience is the whole experience, the affect and the cognitive and the perceptual. So it is your thinking that precedes this whole experience. And I think it's because of these neurochemicals, these chemicals within the nervous system that make all these activities take place. And I think that's the true energy. I remember when I brought that up to Bhante Kalita, he asked me to write this down.
Wait, can you say it again, please?
Yeah, just that the real energy, when anyone's speaking about energy, I think it's these chemicals. That's the real energy, because it's these chemicals that trigger whatever activity takes place. And if we get the right chemicals, it's going to have the optimal experience. When someone takes like psychedelics, it's just a chemical, but these chemicals produce an extraordinary experience beyond the normal. So when we can figure out how to control our organism to the highest point, we can have these extraordinary experiences. So it's really these chemicals that is the real energy, these neurotransmitters, these hormones, these peptides.
Yeah, because these hormones are what control the body, right?
That's what makes the body move and
And that's
act.
what causes the emotions, right?
Yeah, this movement is the emotion. That's why the Buddha said that Chetana is the real Kama. Chetana, we can say, is the chitta, the affect in motion. The affect.
Oh, yes, yes. So I think I once told you, Juan, I said, so basically, when you can develop your mind well enough through meditation, it is possible to develop your mind well enough through practicing meditation. You can develop it to the extent where you can actually control the the chemicals and the hormones that are being released in your brain, in your
Yeah,
body you can control them, right, Juan?
yeah, I think so. That's a big claim. And
Oh, it's been proven. Like they've done uh what do you call those brain graph?
so there's EKGs, EEGs. Well, EKGs I think is for the body, but EEGs for the brain.
Yeah,
MRIs.
yeah, they've done MRI studies, EEG studies on the brain, measuring the waves, like basically like
The
the
electromagnetic waves, or
yeah.
with the MRI, they're measuring the blood flow.
Yes, and they've noticed that when monks go into meditation, they change the wavelengths
Yeah, the
of
wavelengths, and they see that there's certain more blood flow in certain areas of the brain that have characteristics for certain states of mind.
yeah, and then also that they've proven that when they manipulate their state of mind through meditation, which is pretty much what they're doing, right?
Yeah, in meditation, they're just using their mental activity however they want to.
Yes, like they are literally manipulating their own biochemistry of
Yeah,
their entire body, like
yeah,
intentionally. So it's like if um it's like, yeah, they learn to tame their mind, and not just their mind, but their body as well, like biochemically. So when they do that, when a monk does that, um, that they're basically selecting what type of hormones they want their body to secrete. So when you meditate, your body secretes hormones that make you feel calm and peaceful. Peaceful, is that right?
yeah. And I don't know. I need to do more research whether to call that hormones or what. Uh, maybe we could call them peptides. I think that
I
maybe.
think peptides are hormones, Juan.
Well, peptides, when they're in the body, they act as hormones, but when they're in the nervous system, they act as neurotransmitters. That's why Robert Anton Wilson always loved talking about peptides, because it's similar to particles. You know, particles, sometimes when we measure it a certain way, they're a physical particle, but when we measure it another way, they're just a wave of energy. So
That's interesting.
so it's like Robert Anton Wilson used to call particles, instead of particles or waves, he would call it thingamajigs,
Mm-hmm.
thingamajigs. And that's pretty much what a peptide is. It's a thingamajig because, sometimes it'll act like a hormone, sometimes it'll act like a neurotransmitter. So, and,
Oh.
and he said that when he's working and doing something he loves, he's filled with peptides and he's so happy. So happy to the point he doesn't need food. He doesn't need, these things that we think we need to survive. And so I think, I don't know if there's hormones that make you happy or peaceful or tranquil, but I can say maybe there's peptides that act like hormones. So
Yeah. So I remember Robert Anton Wilson, who studied neurobiology, he said that the reason why he does what he does, he pretty much likes to do research, scientific research. So he studies neurology, biology, sociology, all the ologies you can imagine, and he really enjoys developing an understanding of human behavior, human psychology, and then literally traveling around the world and sharing this information in lectures and through his own sense of humor. And he was saying that the reason why he's so good at this, he knows that, he understands that the reason why he's so happy is because he really enjoys what he does, and all he does is create peptides for a living.
Yeah, he's generating peptides in his organism.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a joke where he says that his wife would tell him, "Get over here, eat something. You've been typing away at that typewriter for hours," and that he doesn't even notice it.
Yeah, he enjoys his work so much that he doesn't even feel hunger.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when we have our 3 or 4 hour conversations. It doesn't even feel like it's work or it's time doesn't feel like it's past or it's long. And I think it's just because we're happy discussing the Dhamma.
Yeah, and our attention is focused.
Yeah, our attention is focused and intrigued. Because in order for attention to function, you need certain chemical soups. One of them I believe is dopamine. The other I believe is acetylcholine. And it's so interesting to learn about these neurotransmitters.
Wait, Juan, so if you need dopamine and acetylcholine in order to maintain attention, does that mean you also need them during awareness or meditation practice?
Yeah, I think so. Acetylcholine, and it's the Buddha, when he talked about jhana or satipatthana and jhana, he used to use these 3 words, I know one of the words is atapi, and there's 2 other words. One of them sampajanya. There's another word. When the English translations is, it said that you have to be aware and you have to be the word that comes up is keen. Keen means you're almost excited, or really alert. And that's what I think the acetylcholine does, is that extreme alertness. And I'm going to try to look up these neurotransmitters and link it up to this Pali phrase of how he describes what the proper conditions are for meditation, for introspection. And it's interesting because I was listening to this podcast by Dr. Uberman. He has the Uberman Lab podcast.
Yeah, he's a neurologist from Harvard, right?
He might be from Stanford. I think he's somewhere in the West Coast. And he talked about what are the conditions that are required for neuroplasticity. And it was interesting. He said that acetylcholine is one. That's what generates extreme alertness. He said dopamine is also another one. And he also said neuropinephrine, which is pretty much adrenaline.
Juan, you're right. He is from Stanford University.
Yeah. I always liked him because he's from the West Coast, one of my attachments. But yeah, he mentioned these three chemicals.
I'm sorry, can you say the chemicals again?
Yeah, one was neuropinephrine, which is basically adrenaline.
Uh-huh.
One is acetylcholine,
Mm-hmm.
and one is dopamine. And, neuropinephrine is usually something that makes us feel uncomfortable. It's like a stress. It's kind of like a stressor.
Mm-hmm.
And so he mentioned how when you do something, then you're not good at it, you become stressed. But that if you can continue it instead of just getting frustrated and overwhelmed and stopping, if you can continue and generate some dopamine, like get excited, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this and I'm going to get better at it. Even though right now I'm not good, I'm going to continue. I know I'm going to learn. And then that generates this acetylcholine, which is the alertness. You become really alert and aware and attentive. These three things is what causes neuroplasticity, because that's how we learn to do things. At first, where it's not easy to do something, but then if you continue it and don't quit, you get excited that you're getting better and learning. It provides the proper conditions for neuroplasticity.
Wow.
And the Buddha when he would discuss the Satipatthana and jhana, ecstasy, introspection and ecstasy, he said that when the mind is pliable, he would use, that's the English. Obviously the Buddha didn't speak English. I need to look up the Pali. That's why the Pali is so important. But the main way that Pali word is translated is pliable. When the mind is pliable, I would hear that all the time. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? But now learning this, especially when I told you that there's these three other words that he describes for the conditions for the mind to become pliable, it sounds very much and correlates to what Dr. Uberman was talking about, that you need neuropinephrine, dopamine, and acetylcholine in order to generate the optimal conditions for neuroplasticity.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wish I was I was really dove into this. That's why Bhante Sanata Vihari is always trying to tell me to go back to school.
I know, Juan. It's like right now, a second ago, I was in a neurology course, taking a neurology course.
It's funny, Joana, because I started, in 2018, I went back to school and I took like a bunch of psychology courses just because, Bhante Punaji, our teacher, said that if you want to learn the Dhamma, you got to learn modern science, modern psychology, modern philosophy. And I went, and when I took the biological psychology course, which is basically neuroscience, neurology, it was like learning pure Dharma. Like I had never learned something that was more like Dhamma than that. Even reading I had at that point, I was like 7 to 8 years into my Dhamma journey, which means meditating, studying the teachings, reading tons of Buddhist books. None of them were as close to Dhamma as this neuroscience course was. Wow. And that's why it's so interesting. It's so deep. I encourage anyone you want to learn about Dhamma, learn how this organism works, learn the neurobiology, because learning this is learning reality. Everything else is just a concept. Even though this is also a concept, at least it's a concept describing a process that we can see. It's not just a concept talking about a concept.
Experiencing.
Yeah, that we're experiencing. Exactly. That's why the Buddha said this, the Dhamma is sanditiko, akaliko, ehipasiko, opanaiko. Sanditiko is within experience.
Independent of time.
Akaliko, independent of time. Ehipasiko, verifiable, meaning you can come and see. That's what ehipasiko means. Mm-hmm. Ehi is like come, and pasiko is like pasana, to see. And then opanaiko is introspective. You look inside. You don't have to look outside, because looking outside is science. It's empiricism, but looking inside is introspection, which we can use scientific methods, but now we're just not focusing on the objective, but we're looking at the subjective. So very interesting, very interesting stuff. I don't know how we got here.
So you started talking about, we were talking about affect.
Oh,
how, because I was telling you, I kept hearing that word. And then you started explaining the 3 phases.
Yes, the perceptual phase, the thinking phase, and the affect phase.
Yes, the vijnana, the mano, and the chitta.
Sadhu. Now you know exactly what they're talking about.
Yes, I know. I wrote it all down. But then after you started going further into the affect of the mind.
And the energy as well.
Yes, and then the energy, feelings and emotions and psychic powers. Then you went into I said, so basically emotions are all hormones.
Yes, and then we started talking about neurotransmitters and how they trigger the signals that signal the glands to secrete these hormones.
Yes, and then we were I asked you, so when when monks are meditating, they are secreting hormones that are allowing the body to relax, right? And you said yes.
Yes, but I said also that I need to do more research, because I don't know if there are hormones that cause the body to relax. But I know there could be neurotransmitters that do not signal glands to secrete hormones.
Oh.
So I think that's how it works. I don't know if there's hormones that calm you. I think
because well, the reason why I asked is because you said that when you're meditating, you develop neuroplasticity, right? Meditation develops neuroplasticity.
Yes, and neuroplasticity, we need
certain hormones, right?
No, we need certain neurotransmitters.
Okay, so neurotransmitters are different from hormones.
Yes, neurotransmitter is the chemicals that are passed around from cell to cell, from neuron to neuron within the nervous system.
Oh, so they're not hormones.
No.
Like the peptides are not hormones.
No. Well, peptides,
they're amino acids.
Yeah, peptides are amino acids, but they when they function within the nervous system, they act like neurotransmitters, but when they function within the body, they act like hormones. That's what's so crazy about
But they're not
peptides.
Hormones. That is crazy. They're like imposters.
Or maybe they're like harmonious. They'll behave however they are. They accept what is. But so neurotransmitters, they're cells. We have cells all over the body, but cells within the nervous system are special cells. They're called neurons. Only the cells within the nervous system are called neurons. Mm-hmm. There's sensory neurons. There's interneurons, which are they function specifically within the spinal cord and the brain. And then there's motor neurons that trigger the motor functions of the body. So it works like this. The cells, the neurons in the sense organs are sensory neurons. They get triggered based on chemicals in the environment, chemicals or energy in the environment. It triggers something called polarization. That means is that there's a certain soup of chemicals that triggers an electrical signal to be shot down the nervous system from the top. Down the neuron, down the cell, from the top where the dendrites are, because the dendrites are what are picking up the chemicals and energy that gets triggered and sends an electrical signal down the cell, down the cell to the tip of the cell, and at the bottom tip of the cell, it shoots out chemicals. And these chemicals are neurotransmitters. And then those neurotransmitters get picked up by the head of another cell, by the dendrites, because the dendrites pick up the cells and shoot the signal down the body of the cell, which is called the axon, into the what is called the axon terminal that shoots more chemicals. So it's just this process happening like down all the way from our senses, our sense organs, all the way up to the up the spinal cord. In the spinal cord, that's where we have the interneurons. That's the neurons that like are the intermediate between the sensory neurons and the motor neurons. Because once it goes up the spinal cord to the brain, it triggers certain activities, and that triggers the motor neurons to function, to move, start moving the body. So it's just very interesting. And so
I noticed you got really excited while you're talking about this.
Yeah, and I haven't really, I my psychological biology book, a textbook, I still have it, and I sometimes like to read it just for fun. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these chemicals that are triggering these nerve impulses, because that's what it's called. Whenever a neuron shoots an electrical signal, it's called a nerve impulse, or it's also called an action potential, because it needs a certain amount of stimulation in order for this action potential to take place. It's kind of like flushing a toilet. You know how you can you could press it a little, and then it won't flush, right? You could press it a little, but at a certain point, when you put enough pressure, even if it's halfway, and even if you didn't press it all the way down, at a certain point, it flushes, right?
Yeah.
That's how an action potential works. It's either it gets a little bit of stimulation, but not enough to send this electrical signal. But once there's a threshold, as soon as it crosses that threshold, it shoots that signal. And that's like flushing the toilet. And as soon as it shoots the signal, it stimulates another cell, and then another cell, and another cell, and another, and that signal travels all the way up the spinal cord to the brain. And then, so all these chemicals, right, that are happening in this nervous system are neurotransmitters. And then based on the neurotransmitters, it might send a signal to something called adrenal glands, or in the endocrine system. There's different glands. One of them is the adrenal glands. And these neurotransmitters send a signal to these glands, say, hey, send out the hormones, go. And then the glands start secreting the hormones to the body, not in the nervous system, to the body, because these hormones are going to stimulate certain areas of the body and start arousing those areas.
Like the circulation system.
Or the sexual organs. Like it starts arousing that area of the body. So one of the key attributes of neurotransmitters is that they're quick. They act quick, and they stop quick. They act quick.
How quick, Juan? How quick are they?
That sounds like a Koan. I don't know. The Cypress the Cypress tree outside. They're just, let's just say this, quick. And now, how do the hormones work? The hormones are all right. So
like, I feel like they're like so fast, like milliseconds.
Oh yeah, it's definitely
milliseconds.
It's definitely quick like that, if not quicker. But not only are they quick acting, they also dissipate quickly. So they're quick acting and they dissipate quickly. Now hormones are different. They act slower and they last longer. That's why the Bhante Punjaji always talks about that these being angry or being emotional is like a boiling pot. You have to wait for it to cool down.
Yeah, it takes time.
So neurotransmitters act quick and they dissipate quickly. Hormones act slower and then they take a longer time to dissipate. So it's very interesting. That's how evolution designed the organism. And this is like super rudimentary, super super like small, low level, like neuroscience. Like you can get deeper.
Rudimentary, or you mean like simple concepts?
Simple. Like I'm no teacher of this. This is just what I found interesting. But yes, what were you
Yeah.
gonna say?
Oh, I was going to say that when you practice meditation, as you develop your meditation and your attention, you can actually like notice these changes in your body. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like when I talk about my experience dealing with angry clients, um I noticed that my heart would start beating fast, like really fast and hard, and my stomach would get really tight. My chest would get tight. Like I noticed that m- my diaphragm was no longer relaxed. Like it was tight and it was not moving. So that means that my breaths were shorter. I was not taking like relaxed breaths. I was taking very like short, shallow
Shallow.
breaths.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then my hands, like my shoulders would get tense and like, yeah, my shoulders would get really tense, and I could feel my heart beating like really fast and hard. And basically it was the hormones like preparing my body to fight.
Yeah, it's arousing certain areas in your body to act, and the longer you suppress that action, the more and more tense you get.
Yeah. So I remember saying that I would experience this over and over and over and over and over every day. And I would be like, what if maybe if I do this, it won't happen. Maybe if I do this, it won't happen. Or I would try to think about certain things or say certain things to myself so that I could avoid this experience, but nothing ever helped. So it wasn't until I started meditating that I became aware of the fact that I could actually like instead of focusing all my attention on the client, which my body was naturally doing, my mind and my body were naturally doing because that is an instinctive uh behavior that humans um undertake when they feel that they are in danger or that their life is being threatened. So now that I was aware of this, I made the decision to be intentional about where I was putting my attention versus instead of putting my attention on the client, I decided, although I was maintaining eye contact with the client and like, remaining like seated, I went inside.
Mm-hmm.
I became aware of how the body was reacting and due to these hormones, and I decided to like relax. I went in and I became aware of it, and I made the intention to relax my body and to like let go of that tension. And
Mm-hmm.
then eventually I was able to relax. And while I was relaxing, I was allowing my body to dissipate those hormones a little faster than it normally would because I was reversing the the behavior because I was aware of it and I was going inside and relaxing the body.
Everything you described is perfectly said. Um, and you just really made me want to research the neuroscience of relaxation. Like I want to know what chemicals are working that are causing that.
Yeah,
But
that would be interesting to go into that.
I'll try to work on that. So it's interesting. So what you're describing is that when you were paying attention to the individual outside, that
That is a natural reflex.
That is the natural reflex.
Yeah.
And because of evolution, it thinks it's fighting for its survival at all times. So it has to pay attention to what's happening outside.
Yes. And most people are not aware that you can actually stop that.
Yeah. They have no idea because they're completely blind to what's happening
Yeah, because
inside.
they don't even know what's going on in the body.
Exactly.
Or why it's happening and what's really causing it. And yeah.
And that's why, like, it makes sense. Evolution wants you to pay attention to what's happening outside. That's why, like, movement attracts the eyes. You know, if you see something move, you're gonna turn your head. And
you're biologically designed to do that.
Yes. And so you're already biologically designed to pay attention to what's happening outside. And most likely this is a survival instinct. And
yes,
then you're biologically designed to, once you pay attention to what's happening outside, to start getting that emotional arousal going inside. And so this works in conjunction. Looking outside triggers an emotional arousal inside.
Yes.
And then it's natural to go against the stream of this evolutionary survival instinct. To go against that stream means to look inside. It makes sense that then that has the opposite effect. It starts to relax the body because you become conscious of what's happening.
And you know what, Juan? To me, after I realized that I could do that. I realized I could do that because I was practicing meditation. After I had learned meditation, I went to work and I said, I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to try it. And it worked.
You put on your lab coat and you started experimenting.
Yeah, and it worked. And I was like, oh my God. For years, every single time. There were times, Juan, when I would literally like pray right before right before I'd go out to the lobby to talk to clients. I'd pray. I would like take deep breaths. Like I would literally stand in the hallway and I'd be like, and then I'd be like, it's okay, Joanne.
It's like you're preparing. It's like you're preparing for the pain of childbirth or something.
Yeah. Well, it was like it was a very stressful, emotionally straining, stressful experience. And
it's like it kind of goes back to that Alan Watts essay where it's like doing that, not knowing how to look inside and relax. It's like you're constantly fighting to stay alive and you're constantly always drowning.
So yes, definitely.
And then looking inside and relaxing is like learning to swim.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. I like that. I like figuring these things out with you on this podcast.
Yeah. It's like we're dissecting human biology.
Yeah.
Except without actually doing it.
Yeah. We're using the medical tools of introspection.
Yes.
Instead of a scalpel.
Yeah.
Or instead of a fMRI machine. Joanna, before the podcast, you said that you had some questions. Do you recall any of those?
I think my main question was addressing the 3 phases. I really wanted to understand that. And what else? Oh, I wanted to just basically share my experience with you and just like see what your opinions and insights were as I shared them.
Yeah, please go ahead.
And I think we pretty much did it already, Juan.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you. But how much time do we have?
You know, when I record, I never keep track of time. I should start doing that. But it feels like it's been like an hour and a half, hour, 40 minutes. So we can start winding down. And this I thought was a good episode. We got to hear about what your experience was, the great people you met. Hopefully, some of these interesting meditators and Kalyāṇa-mittas you became friends with out there. Maybe we can have them on the podcast and we can interview him. I know I have a long laundry list of who I want to interview. Number one is our biggest fan and my teacher, Bhante Siriniwasa. If you're listening, Bhante Siriniwasa, we want to interview you. It's you're the main person we want to interview, the main wise individual we want to interview.
Hi, Bhante.
Yes, hi, Bhante. Thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you for everything you do for the temple and for all the lay people and all the monks. You're an incredible, extraordinary individual, and the Buddha would be extremely proud of you. So thank you for walking into my life and bringing the Dhamma into my life. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Bhante.
So I guess with that, we'll wind this down. Any last words for our listeners, Joana? You're doing the Koan answer again?
No, I'm thinking. Well, actually, I'm just really grateful that that I have you to talk to, Juan, about the Dhamma, and that I have you as a teacher. And I feel that you have really helped me understand a lot. And thank you for always being patient with me and my questions, because I know I ask a lot of questions.
Don't worry, I love questions.
And also thank you to Bhante Sanata, Diana, Justin. Oh yeah, Justin is an amazing cook.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was gonna tell you, he actually cooked a few meals for us while we were at the monastery.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the mornings he made a breakfast. He made I think he used tofu and some type of vegan protein, and he made scrambled eggs with it, and then he marinated it with soy sauce, a little bit of sugar, garlic, onions, and I don't know what else. But it smelled so good. And then we were eating breakfast, and there was like one spoonful left of it, and I took it and I carefully scraped it out of the bowl, and then I went and I sat down and I was eating it. And I don't know why, Juan, but for some reason when I eat Sri Lankan style, like with my hands, I feel like the food tastes so much better.
Wow, that's interesting. You know, tacos taste incredible, and we eat tacos with our hands.
Yeah, also pizza, like.
Oh, pizza.
Yeah. But
and ceviche when we use the tostada.
Oh yeah. So okay, so my bowl was pretty much empty, and then I was like, there's still a little bit of crumbs in there. And I was like, but Joanne, somebody's gonna see you scraping your bowl. That's like this little voice in my head was like, Joanne, don't do that. That's embarrassing. And then this other little voice in my head was like, I really don't care. So I started scraping the bowl, and right when I was scraping the bowl with my hands, like literally like licking the last little crumbs off of it, Justin walked by and he saw me and he started giggling, and then he walked away.
That was probably the best compliment you could have gave him.
Yeah, I was like, should I be embarrassed? Should I not be embarrassed? And I was like, oh, I don't care.
That's funny. Oh, that's really cool. Justin is a friend of the temple, of the podcast. He's a incredible individual as well. He works with a lot of he's a counselor. He's a counselor to a lot of kids who may be involved with gangs or have troubled they may label as troubled youth, and he actually like treats them with the most love and care and attention, and you can see that how that affects them, and so he's an incredible individual, very patient, very educated, and apparently an amazing cook. A jack of all trades. So sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to Justin.
Yeah, I realized after spending time with him at the temple, he has well-developed emotional intelligence.
Oh yes, to a high point.
Yeah, I think that's what really helps people who are counselors. The best counselors, I feel, are the ones who have really developed emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm particular about my words. So I like you're right about the emotional intelligence. I just like to call it emotional composure.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that. Emotional composure.
Yeah. Cause, and it's from my Bhante Punaji, you know,
Oh, so
uh,
that's what Bhante Punaji calls it?
yeah, he used to say, because there's a book called Emotional Intelligence, and we know what it means. We know what they're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But Bhante Punaji would also point out that the emotions cannot be intelligent. The emotions are blind. They cannot reason,
Oh, I see. I see why he would.
and so he would use emotional composure.
Would you say that his attention to words came from his attention to Pali?
And yeah.
I mean, his attention to English words came from his attention to Pali words.
Oh yeah, because and I think there's three things: attention to English words because of attentions to Pali, because attention to his experience. So, he read the English words that were translated from the Pali, and it didn't line up with experience. And so he started from scratch, kind of like Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes, when he started his philosophy, he had to give up everything and start from scratch. And that's what Bhante Punaji did. He started looking at his experience, looking at the Pali words the Buddha talked about, and then using the proper English terms to describe that experience.
Wow.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you, Joanna, for sharing all your experiences and being so open. It's much appreciated. I know our listeners, from the listeners I've spoken with, they love hearing you. And thank you to everyone who is out here listening and for staying with us for this long. We probably won't be taking any breaks soon, so you'll be getting podcasts once a week and sometimes even twice a week if we do any interviews. So thank you for sticking with us. We love you all. Remember to let go, and by letting go, relaxing, you can become liberated. And so may all beings in this universe be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. And may you all live with ease. Sukhi Hotu.
What should be done by one who's skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may May your beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with a life a child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, free from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all